There are moments in history when silence speaks louder than gunfire. Moments when a single act of courage exposes the rot hidden behind medals and ranks. This was one such moment. The year was 1942, somewhere on the Eastern Front. The winter wind cut through the air like blades, and soldiers stood in perfect formation, awaiting inspection. The battalion's commander, Captain Reinhardt, was known for his iron discipline and his corruption. He demanded obedience, not respect. He demanded tribute, not loyalty.
Among the newest recruits stood Private Elias, a quiet young man with eyes that neither flinched nor begged. He had no ambition for glory, only a clear sense of right and wrong.
That morning, during the inspection, Captain Reinhardt stopped before Elias. A faint smirk curled on his lips as he held out a sealed ration crate. Inside were supplies meant for the wounded, supplies the captain intended to sell on the black market. "Move this to my personal tent," the captain ordered, his tone dripping with authority. The order was corrupt. Everyone knew it. No one dared to breathe.
But Elias did not move. His voice was calm, but his refusal carried a weight that stopped the cold wind itself. "Sir," he said quietly, "that order violates the oath we swore to this flag." The line was drawn, and for the first time, the captain felt his authority tremble. The captain's face twisted with rage. "Did you just question my order?" he thundered, stepping closer until their faces were inches apart. The men surrounding them held their breath. Elias didn't blink. "Yes, sir," he said evenly, "because it was wrong." The captain's gloved hand shot forward, an open-handed strike aimed at Elias's face. But it never landed. With one fluid motion, Elias caught the captain's wrist mid-air. The sharp crack of leather meeting bone echoed across the courtyard. The sudden sound sliced through the silence like a rifle shot. Every soldier froze. Even the flags stopped fluttering. Reinhardt's authority shattered in that instant, not from violence, but from the unbearable quiet that followed. The captain stood, trembling, face pale as frost, trapped in the eyes of his entire battalion.
No one spoke. No one dared. The captain stumbled backward, his confidence leaking away like air from a punctured drum. The men, once terrified of him, now watched in silence, not out of fear, but awe. The battalion sergeant, an older man named Hartman, stepped forward cautiously. "Private Elias," he said softly, "do you realize what you've done?" Elias lowered his gaze. "I followed the oath, sir. Nothing more." Captain Reinhardt's voice cracked. "You're finished. I'll have you court-martialed by sunset." But even as he spoke, he could hear the doubt in his own tone. Hartman turned to the captain, his expression firm. "Sir, the order you gave, I heard it too. If this recruit falls, so does every man who still believes in honor." The captain opened his mouth, then closed it again. Around him, the men straightened, not in defiance, but in quiet solidarity. The corruption that once held them captive had been broken by one act of conscience. Elias did not gloat. He simply saluted and said, "A uniform loses meaning when the man wearing it forgets his duty." Hartman nodded slowly. Perhaps that's the reminder we all needed. That day, the inspection ended early. The captain returned to his tent, silent, pale, and defeated. His name would never command respect again. And the recruit he tried to break? He became a symbol whispered around campfires, the man who stood for what was right, even when it meant standing alone.
Years later, when the war had ended and the guns had fallen silent,
Soldiers who had once served under Reinhardt spoke of that day in hushed tones. They said the silence that followed Elias's defiance was louder than any battle cry. It changed the battalion. Men began to question blindly following corrupt orders. They began to think and to act with conscience. Elias never sought recognition. He left the army quietly after the war, returning to his small village where he lived a humble life as a teacher. Yet in the barracks and veteran halls, his name became a quiet legend, a reminder that power means nothing without integrity. When asked years later what gave him the strength to defy a captain before an entire battalion, Elias gave a simple answer. A man's first duty is not to his superior. It is to his soul. And with that, the legend of Private Elias lived on, not in medals or records, but in the conscience of every soldier who chose honor over obedience. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories from states of history.